It's been a minute since I've actually had to like sit down and talk about an update because, we're actually getting an update later on that's coming up. And recently we just had a developer live stream on Twitch and YouTube. I guess they started doing it on YouTube now, but they did introduce some new spells, of course, and a new concept called spell weaving. Now, in this particular video, I just want to talk about the spells. In a video coming out a little bit later, I don't know if it's going to be the same day or tomorrow, I'll talk about spell weaving. But there's some interesting things about spell weaving no one has actually thought about, but I will save that for tomorrow or later video. So let's talk about the spells that were introduced in the video that they showed on live stream. Of course, I already made a video or uploaded a video earlier with just like the animations, but I want to give you guys my thoughts about these spells, because there's some things that we can actually, like take a minute and realize and think and to be like, okay, what's actually happening in this spell versus just looking at the animations. So I've actually downloaded the video and we're going to quickly go through them and give you guys my quick thoughts about them. So now that I have the video pulled up, of course, I'm going to lower the audio. It's going to be a different type of style of video, but let's talk about the balance spell first off. So with the balance spell, I like how a lot of people thought this was going to be a boss. It's still possible that this can be a boss, right? And I know a lot of people thought this was a moon boss or something like that. From the way that they've been talking about it on the dev live stream, it's still possible that this can be a moon boss. But there's something unique about this animation that I feel like not many people are talking about. Like, yes, there is a moon in the back, but it's this particular animation right here. Now, if you look carefully, it's switching through what it seems like every school. Like, you see death right there. You see, I think that's life right there with like the yellow and the green. And then, yeah, you just see it quickly just flickering through all the schools. Now, it does 615 damage, but people don't know what the spell is actually going to do because we don't have like a indication of resist, pierce, anything like that. It's just straight damage that we're seeing, which is 615, and this is a bounce spell. Now, we don't know the cost of the spells yet. Of course, we'll find out hopefully next week or later on, but eventually we'll find out sooner or later. But 615 damage on a bounce spell. Now, if you saw the animations, you can clearly see it did death. Like, the way that this looks like, it looks like it did death damage. But it's still possible that it does a random school. Now, it doing a random school, I'm not too sure what the community is going to think about just it being a random school. Or, you just use this bounce spell, it does 615 damage or whatever, and it just randomly picks a school, right? It might seem like a cool concept, but if you're trying to do a certain strat in a fight or something like that in PvE or PvP, this might fumble your fight quite literally. So if I had to take a guess, maybe there's different paths on this spell where I can be like, okay, has a higher chance of it doing a certain school, for example, like Myth. I know they had this concept on one of the spells for balance like a while back. It's still possible that they bring this back. And of course, we are going to have a top path and bottom path with these spells. I would just have to highly assume it just makes so much sense, right? Because in Wallaroo, we did have top and bottom paths, so it kind of just makes sense moving forward. We're gonna have a top and bottom path for this with different tiers, with different damage, of course, different increments. And if I had to take a guess, a 615 is most likely the base. But still, 615, and we have to go off the assumption it did death and it did a random school just because of it flickering through all these different schools the chameleon can do, right? So it's pretty interesting, but I'm not too sure about the randomness factor with the spell, because if it is completely random, balance is a little bit weirded out because I just have to use balance blades instead of using a, like, I don't know, like a school specific blade, right? With the whole weaving system, which I'll talk about in another video, where like you could choose another school. Now let's say I weaved into death and this hit death. Of course, I'm not too sure what, like, of course it's gonna do more damage, but if I weaved into, life and this did death damage, my life blade that I equipped, it's kind of just going to be sitting there. But we'll have to wait and see, right? This is a lot of assumptions going based upon the animations, and the animations do tell a lot when it comes to what the spell is going to do. But yes, I would assume that this spell has a bottom path, and I don't think it does any extra effects like on the base spell. I think this is just straight 615 damage, and I don't think there's like an additional effect. I think this like on the base spell, right? Of course, when we go talk about bottom paths of spell, this probably has some sort of condition. Don't know what it could be, but I can't really go based upon anything in this animation when it comes to like bottom path of what it could do. But still, that the bounce spell is quite interesting, but the randomness factor is gonna, maybe I'm wrong about that, but the randomness factor is quite interesting. But at the same time, if I don't do damage with the correct one I want to do, it's a bit yikes. But let's move on to the death spell. Death spell, honestly, I'd say it's like it's up there for me being the best animation out of all these. We'll quickly play it out real quick, but like this whole animation is insane, right? It's wow, right? But if you look at the damage, 665, right? And I know some people are gonna question, are these spells gonna be like, are they gonna require a school pip? I honestly, looking at all of them and looking at them back, there is no indication of like, hey, this is a dual school spell. Like, I know someone's gonna be like, oh well, you know, this could be like a death spell, or I mean, well, this is a death spell. This could be like mixed in with like myth. It could be mixed in with balance. But honestly, I don't want to go straight off the assumption of that, because with the previous spells with Wallaroo, it was a clear indication that it showed a damage, or like it showed a school pip of another kind. Like for example, the previous death spell that we had for death, you can see that there's an ice animation at the end. Even though it's a death spell, you can see the ice animation. This has no clear indication of like, hey, this is a combination of another school. But you can see it does 665. I'd say it's decent, but the like I said, who's going to be using this particularly, right? And I know some people are going to ask if these are AoEs. They're not. If they were AoEs, I feel like they would have shown them hitting another person. Someone could say that, oh, this could be a split spell. It's possible, but I don't think that this is a split spell. At least at the moment, right? It's just showing a straight damage on a single target enemy. If they wanted to showcase it being an AoE or split target, I feel like they would have showed that in the trailer. So there's that. But yeah, there's not much I can say about this spell, right? Other than it's just a 665, and all these schools are roughly doing around the same amount, other than myth and life, which we'll get to. But I'm not too much, there's not too much for me to say based upon this spell, but we'll have to see what the bottom path looks like and what the damage looks, or like the damage increments for like the next tiers, right? But still, and this doesn't seem like a drain. I know some people are going to ask if this is a drain. I don't think this is a drain, because they would have shown the additional animation of it giving you HP. So if this is a drain, I feel like this would have been a missed opportunity to showcase it. But yeah, I don't think this is a drain. Now let's go to fire real quick. We'll just look at the animation real quick, and then we'll talk about it. And that does 780. 780 on a fire spell. I don't know where this would land, right? On the pip cost, right? It could be 2 pips and a school pip. It could be 3 pips and a school pip, right? This could all like have spells that are just giving you straight damage, and on top of that, giving a school pip for your school, right? If they still want to, you know, go with the school pip route, it's very possible. But not much to say with this either. There is no secondary hit. There is no, I mean, we won't know if there's a dot animation as well on it. I know some people might question that, like, hey, what if there's a dot after the hit? Thing is, I can't tell, because all these lost souls in this whole video that they showed, they just die after the first hit. So we won't know if there's like an additional effect on like the enemy. Like for example, if the death spell hit and gave a weakness, we won't know because the lost soul died. Same thing with the fire one. We don't know if it's gonna put a dot because the enemy's already dead. So it's kind of tough to tell in that aspect. But like if it's something like on us, I feel like we would be able to see, like if it gave a shield or if it gave us a blade, we would visually see that, I feel like. But yeah, there's not much to say about this fire spell other than it does 780, which is, wow, that's pretty good. And I know Storm does like 975, which we'll get to. But this is Ice School. Yeah, here we go. We can look at Ice School real quick. this I could see the argument of like, you know, hey, this is like ice and myth or like ice and balance, but they're all like around the same theme. But yeah, ice one does 650. 650 is pretty good if I had to take it. If I had to say like if we looked at the balance spell, the balance spell does 615. The ice spell did 650, which is quite interesting in that regard. So, maybe if we go back to the balance spell one more time, I feel like the damage is different per school too. I mean, that's still an option as well. Like if it landed on Storm, imagine it doing like, I don't know, 750 or something like that. I don't know. But like that's still a very possible thing to happen. But yeah, with this ice spell, of course, single target like we were talking about earlier on. And 650. Don't know what the after effects would this be, but yeah, there's nothing that's like attached with it as well. And I tried looking back at like certain frames to see, because usually you can tell how much pips a person has with like the effects around them, but in this whole video you can't really tell that because they just use the command to essentially just cast a spell, showcase it. So yeah, really can't see what the pip cost is either, which is like the only thing. But still, the ice one has a good concept on it, but I don't know what it will look like. I feel like the balance one was a bit more obvious, but these other ones are a little bit tougher to tell. Now we have the life one. The life one has a lot of questionable things, which we'll talk about in a second. I know the animation's a little, I don't know if that bugged, but like I feel like the whole head shake up and down, but it glitched. But that is the big question we all ask. Why are we healing the enemy? So this is a 1480 heal, what it seems like, because if you look at all the other previous animations, you can see the lost soul getting hit back. We look carefully even at this one, the lost soul gets hit back and it does an animation. With this life heal, if you look, it didn't get hit back. The lost soul didn't get pushed back in any sort of way. So I'm not too sure what some people are thinking, like, oh, you're healing the enemy. No, I don't think that they would give us a spell where you heal the enemy with there's nothing after this. There's no dot on the field, there's no hot on the field, there's no blade trap, there's no hanging effect. It's just a straight heal. So if I had to take a guess, I don't think this is you healing the enemy. I think this is just a showcase of, hey, you can heal a person with this and just treat the lost soul as if it's your ally. So I think that's what this is. And there is no hot with this. There is no actual extra benefits. I think this is just a straight heal. Not too sure how I feel about this, because like for people in advanced combat and everything like that, like PvP players, this is a burst heal. This is not a hot. This is a burst heal. Now, if I had to take a guess, and the way that the whole spells are like going at the moment, I would assume this is banned in advanced content and banned in PvP, right? I would assume the bottom path, whatever it is, it gives you a hot instead of a burst heal, right? Because I've seen some people already complain about this spell being broken and it being 1480, right? We still don't know the pip cost, so we can't go straight up into assumptions about this being broken. But if I had to take a guess, this is most likely banned in PvP and banned in advanced content like raids and such, or challenge mode. And I would assume the bottom path is not banned and you can use it in advanced content and such, and will probably give you a hot of some sort, and for a certain amount of rounds, or 2 hots, 3 hots, however they want to do it. But yeah, it's still an interesting take. I'm surprised they gave life a heal this time around, because now I think about it, we haven't had a heal for life in a minute, right? Not to my knowledge. I'm trying to even think, but yeah, still crazy that this is the 1480 heal. And yeah, so if I had to take a guess, like I said, final thoughts, I would assume this is banned. But still interesting spell regardless. Now let's go into myth. Myth has raised a lot of questions for people too, which we'll talk about in a second. So he breaks it, of course, and then he just straight up hits him. Now if you looked at it, it does 265. So now you're probably wondering, is just myth just like the worst one out of all of them? No. So the thing is with this is if we go back to Novus, the Novus spells at least, the whale spell was a double hit spell. Now this spell, if it's doing 265, I would just have to assume, it being the lowest out of all of them, damage wise, I just have to assume as a player that this is a double hit spell. And another reason why I think that is he just stands there. If you look, it just cuts off and he just stands there. Now, Minnow, I believe, does the same thing where, like, if I kill you with the initial hit, not the secondary hit, but where the initial hit, he kind of just lingers there for a bit. Now, if you look at all the other spells that we just watched, like, for example, like the Ice spell, after he kills you, or like, for example, he just hits, you can see the spell disappearing, right? And same thing with the Fire spell, right? After he hits you, he just leaves. The Myth spell is the only one that lingers out of all of them. So it's just kind of a little bit obvious that this is a double hit spell. Now, I wish that they showcased the double hit portion of the spell, because it's kind of just like, what's next? What's going to happen with him next, right? Like, he's just lingering there. So for this spell, let's just go with the assumption that this is a double hit spell just because the damage is 265, or it's 265 and it does some sort of effect. But if it did do an effect, I feel like they would have showcased it, right? Of course, all these spells will have a bottom path, so they will have some sort of effect. But for the base spell, they should have showcased it if it was a double hit, because him freeze framing like that shows it's a double hit. But yeah, I wouldn't stress too much. I know some Myth players are kind of like concerned, like, did Myth get like the worst spell? I don't think that. I think it's just a double hit, and the Lost Soul only has 1 HP, so it just dies instantly to anything. So there's that. So I wouldn't stress out if you're a Myth player. I'd say wait till the spell actually comes out, and then we can be like, okay, maybe the spell is actually good or bad, right? I feel like a lot of people have concerns about the balance in Myth spell, mainly, at least. And then finally we have the Storm spell. Storm got a frog. And that one just does 975. Now, obviously there is a cutoff point with the animation, so it's not like how Myth is with the double hit, but this is just straight 975. Animation looks decent, everything like that, but 975. Now, if we, for example, I guess I can look this up real quick. If we look at Teacup for the Nova spell for Storm. But yeah, this is doing 975, and we can say that this is doing 805. Now, this is like a good comparison to be like, okay, well, this is actually going to be 4 pips and a scope pip. Now, I could be wrong on that, but if I had to take a guess at what these spells might cost, as like a assumption at the moment, I would have to say it's going to be 4 pips and a school pip of your school. Because if we look at like all these spells, right, there is no indication of it showing another school. Like, the life is just being life. If you look at the fire and the death, it's just being itself. The only one that shows like a bit of confusion is the bounce spell, because it randomly flickered between all the schools, of course. And then of course it's the Myth one, because there's some people are saying this could look like balance as well, right? But I don't think that's the case. So that's my honest takes on these spells. If final assumptions, this is going to be a 4 pip spell with a school pip of your school, and the Myth one is going to be a double hit. The balance one is going to be more of a random school thing, because there's no way that's the animation and it's just going to do balance damage. Because if you look at the end of it, we'll look at it one more time, you can see it did, you see the little death effects, the little death sprites. So it just kind of shows off that it's going to be some sort of randomness factor, or you can pick the school that you want to hit with, or in the Spellbound path, for example, or whatever, right? Because if this is just balance with a balance pip and the animation is just random every time, it'd be quite interesting, but I doubt they would do that. But there's my takes on the spell. Hopefully it kind of gives you guys my opinions on what what we're looking like for the spells and stuff like that. Obviously, once they all get revealed and like we actually see the cards and stuff, I'll make a video if I have time, of course, because luckily today I have time to make videos, so it kind of works out. But moving forward with like stuff coming out and stuff like that, I'll have to like upload depending on my schedule. But yeah, hopefully this give you guys some insight, like I said, and give you guys my opinions and thoughts on these spells. Be on the lookout for the spell weaving video. I should be able to upload that soon, so just be on the lookout for that. And I'll give you guys my more in-depth thoughts on that, because I know it's raising a lot of questions and concerns. So we'll talk about that in another video. But that is it for me. Leave a like, subscribe, all type of stuff. And I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.